Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be installing helper springs on some coilovers, and I'm going to be showing you how to adjust the height on coilovers the correct way. Okay, so the first step in adjusting coilovers is to remove the spring. And what we're going to do is adjust the shock body length by adjusting this. And we're going to be adjusting it so that the bump stop hits the body before the tire hits up here. And I'll show you what I mean when we do that. But you adjust that first, and then we're going to be adjusting the ride height with this, the top perches. Alright, then the next step that we're going to take to adjust the coilovers is put on the wheel, still with no spring in there, and what we're going to do is jack up the control arm and see where the bump stop engages. And we're going to see if it engages before it hits the wheel well. And obviously it looks like it probably won't, but what we're doing is just raising this, and I'll show you guys when I get to the end. So what I mean by the bump stop is this orange piece here that's designed to actually compress and stop your coilover from bottoming out, or stop your wheels from bottoming out. So what we're going to do is try to make sure that that hits the car before the tire hits the wheel arch. So let's go ahead and give it a try and jack up the control arm. Okay, so now we have the wheel arm jacked up all the way, and we can see this is in the wheel arch liner. So from here, it's not moving because it's contacting here. So what I'm going to do is adjust the shock body length until we can have this wheel rotate at full compression. Okay, so the way we're going to change the engagement of the bump stop is by adjusting this bottom part. And no, this is not how you adjust the ride height. So we're going to do this. We're going to extend the shock body so that the bump stop engages before the wheel does. Okay, so we adjusted the shock body length a little bit, and now you can see it's barely movable by hand, so we have a slight rub under full compression, so we're heading in the right direction. We're just going to extend it a little more so that the bump stop engages a little bit earlier so that I can freely spin this wheel. Okay, so we finally adjusted the bump stop correctly. You'll feel it because your jack will come to a stop and your bump stop will engage, and you're almost like lifting the car already. But this is the suspension fully compressed hitting the bump stop, and it's no longer rubbing the fender. That rubbing sound is just the brakes right now. But yeah, so this is full compression. We have no rubbing. So what that means is the suspension can fully compress and the car won't have any rubbing issues. And it'll also have a lot of travel because the shock body is significantly longer. So let's see what it looks like when I let it go. There should be a good amount of droop. Yeah, so that's the suspension fully unloaded. And you'll see sometimes people take pictures of their car in the air and the suspension is or the tire is still near here and they have no droop. So what that means is when they go over a jump or something or a bump, the wheel will not stay in contact with the ground, and you'll lose traction that way, obviously, because you're in the air. So we have more droop now because the shock body is longer, and the bump stop will engage before the tire hits the inside of the wheel arch. So we won't have the spring rate go to infinity. We won't have any annoying rubbing sound under full compression. It's also pretty rare with the spring rates that I'm running that it'll even do that, but worst case scenario, yeah, it will never rub, and we have a ton of droop. So after we've done that now, it's time to lock in that lower perch here to the shock body. Then we'll lock that in, and then we'll adjust the ride height from there. Okay, now that you've taken the coilover back off the car after you've set the shock body length so that the bump stop engages before the tire hits the fender, we're going to take it off the car, and you lock this down, and then we're going to put the springs on, and we're going to set the ride height with these perches. And all the people that will be like, oh, but my preload. So if you want to lower the car a lot, you're going to be lowering this ring down. And maybe if you lower it a good amount, the spring might rattle freely in here. And I'll show you guys what to do if that happens. So technically you could just lower it so that it's barely holding the spring in, and you're putting a little bit of preload so it doesn't rattle in here. And that's pretty much as low as you could go, unless you add something like this. And this is a helper spring. So I'm going to show you guys how you put that on if you want to go any lower than what it is now, but your shock body length is now set up correctly for the bump stop engagement, and we're going to go put ahead and put the spring on. So here I'm putting it on. You guys are probably wondering maybe where does the helper spring go? So I put the helper spring up here because when the suspension is fully unloaded or full droop or something in motion, you don't want this to impact the coilover body or shaft. And if the coupler is down here, you could have some looseness there and have a chance of that getting out of alignment. So I prefer to put the helper spring at the top. So what happens generally is you're going to get more droop, like I said, and then it's going to help like preload the springs in here so that they don't rattle around when the car is fully unloaded. And then it should also help a little bit, I think, with the contact patch on the inside wheel that's more unloaded. You'll have more droop and the spring will be working. But what a helper spring also does or doesn't do is it doesn't affect the car when it's fully on the ground. This is going to be fully compressed actually, and it only comes into play when the car extends and keeps this assembly from like rattling around by like preloading this section of the coilover, and then it gives the car more droop and maybe a better contact patch on the inside. Okay, so now the car's on the ground now, so you don't want to adjust the height with that bottom perch, you adjust it with the spring perch, but I think I pretty much got the height dialed in. You want to make sure your control arms don't mess with the roll center too much if you care, but anyways, let's take a look. I'm going to raise the car with a jack, and you guys can see how much droop the suspension has. In other words, how long it takes for the wheel to lift off the ground. And there we go. So with the helper spring, we've got that much more travel, droop, and we have the appropriate preload on the spring while being able to lower the car a good amount more than if we didn't have the helper spring. And we also adjusted the bump stop so that it engages before the tire will hit the wheel well. And yeah, that's pretty much the correct way to set up your coilover ride height. Again, usually if you buy like top of the line coilovers, you'll see that they don't even have a bottom part adjusted because they should be adjusted to the car already. But in this case, we just set it ourselves so that the bump stop engages when it's supposed to. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the video. I showed you guys how to adjust the height of the coilovers, and then I set the camber before getting an alignment at a local alignment shop. So if you guys don't know, the easy, cheap way to get an alignment or a custom alignment is to set the camber at home, which I do with this. Basically all you have to do is make sure the car is level from side to side, of course, or else the angles are off. Then you can adjust the camber when it's in the air, and then you have to let the car down, and then you have to lift it up to adjust. Kind of tedious, but then you can still get an alignment anywhere for pretty cheap. Getting an alignment done at like a pro shop would probably be more ideal, but you know, the results are the same when you look at the alignment sheet. So it's pretty much what I wanted, and yeah, car's good to go, and the suspension ride height is set correctly. Alright guys, so that's pretty much all for the video. I hope you guys found it informative. I know it's a little bit different than what you might have seen, even from some manufacturers, but this is actually how you're supposed to set it. If you don't agree with that, then go ahead and don't do it that way. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.